Hey everyone, Daniel from Twin Bytes with another tutorial for you, and this time I'm going to talk to you about how you can see if your password is strong enough. Many websites tell you what the minimum requirements are for a good password, but they don't actually tell you how to best make use of that so that it's actually a strong password, but at the same time not easily guessed and not too difficult for you to remember or to type in with some of the very complicated ones that you can generate out there. Especially if you're trying to type it onto your phone, you don't want to have some complex thing that you're going to get the characters wrong. The 5 main minimum requirements that just about every website asks for is that it needs to have at least one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, at least one number, at least one symbol, and it has to be at least 8 characters long. As long as it meets those minimum requirements, then they're happy with that password. The problem with that is that you can do a password such as this one and it's considered valid and it meets all the minimum requirements. But some of you may look at this password and see why it's not a very good one. But for those of you that it's not that obvious and just assume that, well, it meets all the requirements, it must be good, I'm going to tell you why it's bad. Rocky might be the name of your pet. 2019 might be the year that you got your pet or the year that it passed away. And the symbol at the end is really just to satisfy the minimum requirements so that you can get the green light to go ahead and accept that password. The reason why that password is bad is that you, like everyone else, probably have a picture of your pet on your Facebook or social media site listing his name, saying, I'm so happy to have gotten this pet. We called him Rocky and we got him in 2019, or he passed away sadly in 2019. And you have that on your social media. Social media accounts are getting hacked all the time. So because I would be able to probably see it, and you might even just have it posted publicly by default, which means even if I don't have a Facebook account, I can see your post and get this information. So the first thing I'm going to do to guess what your password is assume it's your pet's name and the year you got it or it passed away. And I'll just throw a symbol in there, and there's only a handful of symbols to choose from, so it's very quick and easy to make a list of potential passwords. One of the ways that hackers hack is just using dictionary attacks, and they can use a built-in dictionary that they got from the dark web, or they can build their own custom one, which I'll show you in a second. And the big problem too is that a lot of people will use the same password for every account that they have. So they might say, well, I use one password for my bank, I use another password for all my social media, and another password for all my business accounts. While still, you're using the same password for more than one account. So once I got your one password, I'll just assume that you're using the same password for absolutely everything and just hammer away at all your accounts and see what I can get into. So using the dictionary attack, building our own dictionary list is very simple. I'm going to show you here. So maybe you didn't use Rocky 2019 exclamation mark with a capital R. Maybe you used one of these few variations. Just putting an uppercase or lowercase number, switching them around, putting in a number like the number 0 where the O would be, and changing the symbol, changing the location of the symbol. And using a simple Excel file, I can punch in some parameters and just drill through, and you can see how quickly I'm able to generate a list of potential passwords here. And then I would just have a program that runs and tries all these various passwords to hack into your account using a brute force attack. I successfully guessed one of my clients' passwords a number of years ago when we were just talking about it. And I said, well, you didn't just put your pet's name with the year you got it, did you? And sure enough, they did. And they said, well, I had the number 1 at the end. Like, well, you got to change it. And before we could talk anymore, they went and changed it. And I said, well, you didn't just increment the number from 1 to 2, did you? And they looked at me with the obvious look that that's exactly what they did. I can't remember now if they said anything or not to confirm, but they just said, hold on, I'll change it again. You could use one of the built-in online generators that are in some of the browsers or the websites where they ask you to create a password, and you would just right-click in the password field and it will ask you to generate a password, and it generates one, and then you can make use of that. But you can see that it's going to be some long cryptic series of letters and numbers, and it's going to be very difficult for you to know if you're trying to type it into your tiny little phone or a tablet. It's, unless you're putting it in a password protected file on your computer where you can copy and paste it, it's going to be difficult to type in. So what would be an example of a good password? First of all, don't include your pet's name. And don't include the year that you got them or the year that they passed away when you're combining those two together. That's not helping anything. And simply just don't include anything that somebody could find through your social media. So whatever it is, saying your favorite pastime or whatever, they're going to look that up on your social media account and assume that that's one of your passwords. You do want to make sure that it meets the 5 minimum requirements. And I would recommend, which a lot of experts recommend, using a sentence for a few reasons. One, it's going to be easier to read if you're typing it into your phone. It's going to be easier to remember, and it's so much stronger than an 8-character long password. Even though it's just a simple sentence, it's so long that if somebody was doing a brute force attack, it would take them years to be able to get in there with today's technology, depending on how long it is and how many little extras that you throw in there with symbols and such. You could use a password such as this one. The green unicorn jumped over the pink star for the first time. And note that this doesn't include any symbols, but it is considered an excellent password because it is so long and the sentence is weird. It doesn't make sense. It's not something that any kind of AI would be able to put together and say that that's a sentence that makes sense. So it is cryptic in a way, and the fact that it's so long, it's going to be very difficult to hack, and it would take a very, very long time for a brute force attack. And something like that, somebody would just give up unless it's of extreme value that they would keep going and going. And hopefully by that time you would have changed your password again, which is another thing that you should do for a good password, is just changing them often. And I would say for personal use, maybe once a year is a good plan to do. Because if you're not doing it at least once a year, then what are you going to say, every 2 years or what? It's got to be daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. And for a lot of corporations, they may have quarterly password change requests that they'll have a security policy in place that you have to change password every 3 months. But some of them are even as crazy as every day, which is very high-end security stuff. One of the myths is that replacing the letters in a password is a good way to meet the minimum requirements while keeping a simple word or phrase that you want to use. But you're meeting the requirements, but that doesn't work. And it's because they're too easy to guess. Everybody knows how to do it. So if we use my company name for an example, we got Twin Bytes. How would you write that out? I'll just give you a couple seconds and I'll start typing it out here. The TW is probably the same. I, what would look like an I, you're probably using the number 1. And then we might want to switch up an uppercase to a lowercase, and the E would look like the number 3 and the S looks like the number 5. Everybody uses this, so any hacker would assume if that was your password, we'll just replace the letters with numbers or symbols, whatever makes sense, and we'll use that. The word password we've seen on the internet passed around, and that was too easy as well. You know, we'll maybe change the uppercase to a lowercase to meet the minimum requirements, throw in the @ symbol for the letter A, S we already know is 5. The O would be a 0. And so we've switched it up. So we've got the upper lowercase symbol, and it's a minimum of 8 characters long. That's not a good password still. It's still very easily guessed. And 8 characters long is just not considered very long anymore. So now you hopefully understand how hackers can guess your password, what passwords are considered bad, even though they meet minimum requirements, and how you can generate a good password in a couple of ways. And that's it for this tech tutorial. I hope you did find it helpful. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Even better, give it a super thanks. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.